Hello, empathy heroes. Hello, empaths. Hello, feely humans. I am Known Wells, and welcome to You Me Empathy, a podcast about feely humans and getting our hearts out into the world and expressing ourselves through our stories about mental health and our struggles, because we all struggle, and we're not alone. You are not alone. So I hope you enjoy this episode. This is episode 19 with my friend Rukmini Poddar. We talk about communal empathy. Rukmini has a great thing going at dearruksi.com. That's DearRuksi.com, where she illustrates obscure emotions. Think about that for a second. It's pretty wonderful, and you should check that out. And you should also listen to this episode. I hope you enjoy it. Before I go, I just wanted to mention that you can support the show financially for as little as $1 a month. This is an independent operation. It is a lot of work. I put a lot of effort into it because I care deeply about it, and I care deeply about you. And so $1 a month, that's 25 cents an episode. You can do more if you want, but that's a way. You can support the show at patreon.com/youmeempathy. And you can support the show for free by following us on Twitter and Instagram at YouMeEmpathy, joining the Facebook community, facebook.com/groups/YouMeEmpathy, and then leaving the show a rating and review in iTunes. That would be awesome. I love you. Enjoy my chat, episode 19 with Rukmini Poddar on communal empathy.
Welcome to You Me Empathy. Thank you for listening. We would like to remind you that this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Known as just a silly boy with a feely heart. Please consider supporting the show. Check us out on Patreon or simply leave a review on iTunes. Here's your host and creator of the show, Known Wells.
Welcome to You Me Empathy, a podcast about exploring the struggles we face in our day-to-day lives as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of You Me Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our neuroses, our mental illnesses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire emotional and cognitive collaboration and insight, so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being human. You Me Empathy is a safe place, a conversation between friends, a place to inspire the beauty in each of us. Today, I'm excited to embark on another wonderful journey on the topic of communal empathy with artist, smiley-faced designer, and illustrator of your valid and obscure emotions, Rukmini Poddar. Hello, Rukmini.
Hey, Nan. So happy to be here.
Oh, happy to have you. Yeah, so I am really excited to get into the topic of communal empathy today. You have this amazing thing going on dearruksi.com where people send in their emotions that are, maybe sometimes hard to define. We all have those. We all experience that. And then you illustrate them, which is just so, I just wanted to get that out. We'll get into it, later in the episode, but I just wanted to get that out at the top just to say, I commend you. It's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So before we get into you and your story and Dear Rooksy, I wanted to just do an emotional check-in. We always start the show talking about how the week was, and just to kind of start off on a good foot. And you could, even if your week was a struggle, it's still good to sort of have a check-in every once in a while. So how was your week, Rukmini?
Oh, well, it was good. It was a struggle in some ways. There were some uh there's actually a relationship I was in for a few months that ended last week. And so that was, there was some heavy-heartedness with that, but also a sense of maybe just embarking back on life and kind of taking life one day at a time. So for the most part, it's been a beautiful journey, really, my whole year so far, and this week has been nice. But there's this sense of, some heavy-heartedness and just kind of taking some time for myself and accepting that, and doing what I love to do, which is processing emotions, my own and others. But yeah, that's kind of just where I'm at. A little sensitive, a little thoughtful, and just trying to be grateful about everything.
Well, it sounds like you are processing it in a way that's healthy, at least.
Yeah, I hope so.
Well, I mean, it's, I'm sorry you had to go through that. I think many of us, me included, can relate to that, those experiences, and it's never easy, and it's understandable that we struggle sometimes, experiencing those things, because, it's heartbreak. It's when it comes to matters of the heart, it's sensitive times.
Yeah, definitely. That whole journey of learning to open your heart to someone and then kind of closing it. It's always a struggle, And
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and I really, for me, what helps is just hearing other people's stories, which we can go on later, of why Dear Rooksy is so helpful for myself and other people. It's like, oh, I'm not alone, or oh my God, this pain is so universal.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, really helps to just remember that.
Yeah. What has been helping you this week just sort of process some of those emotions?
This week it's just been friends. It's been really nice to just connect with people, and I do a lot of journaling, and I started doing also some writing. If you go on my Instagram, there's been a few posts this week that have just kind of come from this experience. But yeah, whenever I can express however I feel and kind of share it with the world, it's really helpful, because immediately there's that feedback from the other side of, oh, I've always felt this and I never knew how to put it into words, or hey, I'm feeling that way too. So
Yeah.
for me, I guess when I process things, it's just connecting to others, whether it's my friends close by or online. That always really helps.
That's amazing. Yeah, I've learned through just doing this podcast, and I think I think I mentioned this on the podcast already, but I think it bears repeating, in that there was a long period of my life where I just didn't talk about anything, and a couple years ago started going to therapy, and just started trying to process and understand, sort of my emotions a little better. And through that process, and then this podcast, it's sort of allowed me to just be more open with the people in my life, and the feedback, as you're talking about, has been great, and it's just been so supportive, and it's always so heartening. Like, I don't know what I expected, but there is I guess that's the stigma, or these cultural norms we ascribe to, that make us fearful of, like, opening up, like, what's going to happen? Are we going to be judged?
Yeah.
What have you,
Definitely, definitely. That's beautiful, though, that in the process of opening and sharing, you've gotten such great feedback. And there's one kind of saying I like to live by, is that honesty is always attractive. And I feel like when people are honest, it's just the heart just opens, and you being honest about your story, it's just attracted this community and this podcast. And so, yeah, it's a wonderful quality. So I also commend you for going on this journey.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, for me, this week, I just wanted to mention I read a book called Lighter Than My Shadow, by a British gal named Katie Green. And the book, it's a graphic novel, really beautifully illustrated, coming of age tale about a young woman dealing with anorexia and some bulimia as well. And it's just like it is really quite stunning how the sort of emotions and the mental processes and the sort of body dysmorphia that comes with those illnesses, the way she put those on a page and just illustrated them, it was just really remarkable. And the listeners know that I had anorexia in my late teens and early 20s. And so I just really, really was drawn to and related to that story. It's a really good book. And I think you can find it at lighterthanmyshadow.com. It's really good.
Wow. Awesome. I'm actually Googling it right now.
Oh, good.
Especially when he said graphic novel, it caught my attention.
Yeah. I'm a huge reader. I read a ton, and I read a lot of comics as well, and graphic novels. And the sort of that medium of late in the last, I guess 5 to 7 years has been really just ripe with amazing, like memoir-based stories. Things like Fun Home and Aline Broche, Ali Broche. Sorry, Ali Broche is Hyperbole and a Half, and just a lot of just amazing graphic novel medium sort of memoirs dealing with mental health specifically, which is just great.
That's great to hear.
Yeah. Okie dokie. I want to hear a little bit about you, Rukmini, and your story.
Sure.
So you started this amazing website. I want to sort of back up before you started it and want to understand maybe a little bit of your, like, what is, like, how do I put this? I guess let's just talk about where did that come from in you?
Yeah.
Like, I want to understand, like, internally your sort of motivations to create Dear Rooksy and, the space you were in emotionally prior to that.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for that question. I would love to share. So Dear Rooksy, that's kind of recent in a way. Before Dear Rooksy, I was working on a project called Obscure Emotions. So I need also a moment to backtrack where this all started. But I guess you can say the seed was planted a few years ago when I started this thing called the 100-Day Project. So I don't know if you ever heard of the 100-Day Project.
I have, but, I had a friend who did that. My friend Jennifer did that.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, it's quite a big thing. It's a little bit of a social media phenomenon in a way. It started by, as far as I know, Elle Luna, who's an incredible artist. And about 4 years ago, she, went on social media and she challenged everyone to, hey, like, basically anyone could be creative and be artistic. Just commit to doing something every single day for 100 days and post it on your Instagram to have that kind of accountability. And she made a cool website and she herself was doing the challenge. And it just seemed so attractive, this idea that I don't need to be really stuck on the quality of my work. I can just focus on the quantity and I can just do 100. No one's judging me. It's all about just getting to the finish line. And so I started that, it was summer of 2015. And I just kind of did random abstract paintings every day. They weren't necessarily beautiful, but it got me into painting with my hands again. I was in college at the time doing graphic design, and I've always loved art, but I started doing more digital work. So I wanted to get back and get my hands back into art making. So that was 2015. And after 100 days, really my art practice changed. I realized that just by doing something every single day, there comes this incredible sense of empowerment. And you just create this body of work that you didn't have 100 days ago. It's like suddenly in 100 days, I was like the self-proclaimed watercolor artist, even though I never used watercolor in my life. So that gave me some confidence. And so for the remainder of that year, I just started doing more watercolor paintings. So that was just amazing that suddenly I felt like I developed a new skill.
Uh-huh.
And then in 2016, this is when I started getting into emotions. I was really inspired by that year's project, and so I was thinking for months, okay, 2016, I'm doing the 100-day project again. What do I want to do? And at that time in my life, I had graduated from college and I wasn't sure what I was doing in life. I was traveling a lot. I was doing random freelance projects. I was doing random art projects. And found myself in India for several months, actually. My family lives there, and I like to spend a lot of time in India going to um, beautiful, holy places, spiritual places. Is kind of like the culture that I grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was in India traveling, and out of nowhere, I got a invitation to come to Australia. I met a friend who lives in Australia, and she was doing these youth tours. So these youth tours is something I also grew up with. At least in the States, it's kind of like a church youth group bus tour, if that
Okay.
makes any sense, where you bring a lot of kids, you bring them on a bus, you go traveling, and you do adventures together and team building exercises, but it's also very deeply spiritual, and it, connects them back to their relationship with God and spirituality. And so that's something I grew up with. So when the invitation came to like, hey, be part of this in Australia, I jumped on board. Sorry, the story sounds like it's detouring a lot, but
No,
it has a
please. I
point.
love it.
So I went to Australia, and basically what's happening in this early part of 2016 is that my life is really opening up. I'm traveling a lot. I'm experiencing a lot of new things, and basically, to kind of cut to the chase, this experience in Australia was beautiful. We traveled from Brisbane to Sydney to Melbourne and a few other places in between. We were in a small little minivan, a 15-seater van, me and three other friends who were kind of like the adult chaperones, and we were taking care of about 15 other teenagers, and all the while doing fun activities and just a lot of really beautiful things. And somehow at the end of the tour, I stayed a few days extra in Melbourne with a couple other mutual friends, and met a guy, and ending up jumping into a relationship. I mean, not immediately,
Mm-hmm.
but that's kind of what happened over the next few months. I went back to India because my parents were there. I spent some time. I was in a long distance relationship, and then decided to, take a plunge and go to Australia for about a month to spend time with this person. And basically what happened is that I entered a relationship with this guy, and I started to really feel like, wow, like where is my, well, basically I started noticing so many emotions in myself. It was like the first serious relationship I was ever in, and it was such a interesting, like I never in a million years thought I would end up, being with someone in Australia and have this kind of crazy relationship where it's just like, um, kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere, I met this
It
person.
feels almost cinematic.
Yeah, exactly. So there was a part, this dramatic side inside of me that just loved it, and was amazed by it and all of these things. So I started kind of drawing my feelings a little bit. And then it was during that time I coined the phrase obscure emotions,
Hmm.
because I just felt like I wanted to be more of a witness to what I was feeling. I wanted to record this journey. I wanted to somehow make sense of what was happening in my life at the time. And so, yeah, and so let's see. How do I bring this back in?
Well, let me
Basically,
ask you this, if I may.
uh-huh. Yes.
You are how old at this point?
23. Just turned 23.
Okay. So how do you like what what is going through your mind when you are deciding, hey, I gotta document these emotions? Because
Hmm.
I'd imagine most people, I shouldn't say most people, I should just say myself. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd have the sort of fortitude or just inspiration to do something like that, especially, as you're experiencing these emotions kind of for the first time. Like,
Hmm.
do you think that, where did that come from? Did you have a, sort of a grounding in the way you were raised? Like, what do you
Hmm.
think allowed you to sort of jump there so quickly?
Yeah, I think it came from my own background in the arts, just there's such a sense of me wanting, like I journal a lot and I like to, understand what I'm going through, but somehow to visualize it and kind of draw it was just kind of fun.
Okay.
I don't know if that, yeah, it
Yeah.
was something that I like to turn things into art projects, basically. So if something unique is going in my life, okay, how do I make that a creative project? But I never in a million years thought I was going to make this public and post it online and start a project. This was just like my own personal journaling.
Mm-hmm.
So the funny thing is, fast forward a few months later and I'm back in the States. We're in a long distance relationship and I'm just feeling like, wow, this is like kind of tough also, being in a long distance relationship, having so much uncertainty about a relationship, trying to move it forward. It was just it was a lot of new emotions and I just felt like, you know what, I'm going to draw them and it's going to be my 100-day project and I'm just going to see what happens. And I made it very generalized. I didn't draw about my life story. I would just take a feeling like the first image I did for my 100-day project was entitled when you realize, wait, let me pull it up, sorry.
No, it's all right.
Okay, when you become an observer of your life and wonder what has brought you to this moment. So it was just this kind of like, I felt like I was expressing my own like existential kind of place in life.
Yeah.
And so I drew it and I posted it up and suddenly it was like, wow, getting responses from friends who just really liked it. And then I kept doing it. The next day I wrote something. Oh, I wrote, when you feel limited by your current reality and you don't know why. And so I would just kind of write these things that I felt, and I just got really encouraging responses from people saying, hey, I feel that way too. And I just kept going through it. So this is like the birth of how Dear Rooksy came. It came from this relationship. It came from me, vulnerably kind of sharing things online that were coming from my personal life. But I never told anyone, this is inspired by my life. I just kind of, kept drawing these little figures. And yeah, and so that was really empowering for me that I suddenly felt such a connection from people.
Did you, when you first decided to start sharing it publicly, did you have worries? Did you, have sort of
definitely.
thoughts about how it would go?
Definitely. I felt either that, well, maybe the worst thing is that I just wouldn't get noticed when you make something so personal and just no one would care. And then the other worry was that people would, I don't know, they would maybe get too curious about my life, or that maybe it was just like too personal. I don't know. I was just kind of vulnerable. Like maybe this was kind of stupid and I shouldn't share things that are so personal. The most amazing lesson though that I've learned is that really like what's most personal is most universal. And that's something that I kind of carry with me till today. It's if I can be very, very vulnerable and just share from like what is so real for me at this moment, it will 100% guarantee to resonate with at least someone out there. And so I started realizing that the more honest I can be with myself, the more powerful the work was. And even like in so many ways, these little artworks I created were kind of amateurish. I wasn't like, I'm not a professional illustrator. They're simple. There's still some pencil lines, there's some smudges, but I kind of felt like people, they were resonating with the essence of it, the message behind it. And that's the fact that each drawing was coming from a very personal place in my life. And I could just start seeing that people feel all of these things and people don't talk about it. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of how it came to this point. So after a while, I just got so, I just inspired that with every image, it's encouraging someone to take off that mask that they're wearing. And that was really nice. So even though they're very inspired by my own life, my drawings, I really felt like I'm not sharing me. This isn't Rukmini's emotions. This is everyone's emotions. And so when I realized how universal emotions are, it gave me a little bit more strength and courage to just share honestly, because no one was going to look at the drawing and try to decipher, my feeling. People are going to look at it and see themselves mirrored back at it. at themselves. So that
Yeah.
was inspiring, that each piece of artwork is about the person seeing it. It's not about me. So when I'm really able to take myself out of the artwork, I feel like it speaks for itself. And so that's also what really drove Dear Rooksy. So basically, after I did 100 of these drawings, 3 months later, I felt such a sense of, I felt definitely accomplishment and happy and very moved, that this whole body of work came. But I felt like I wanted to take it the next step. And that's that I wanted not to draw my own emotions this time, but to draw other people's emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's actually been such satisfying work. It's one of my favorite things that I've done so far. And yeah, even if nothing comes from it, if it doesn't become super popular or famous, I just so genuinely enjoy being able to connect with people in this way and provide this forum where people can take off their masks, really tell me how they're doing, and I can actually draw them something that validates how they feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a powerful and beautiful thing, and I really enjoy that it's out there in the world. When you were going through those 100 days, and processing your emotions, how did you change personally? Do you think that
Oh, that's a
there
good
are
question.
some ways you grew emotionally and mentally?
Yes, there's definitely quite a few ways. I think the biggest realization I came from is that I'm not my emotions.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I feel them so deeply that sometimes I can feel like this is my reality. But
Yeah.
I think as I drew them, I realized that, these emotions are things that just kind of come to me and they'll kind of pass. If I feel a deep sadness or something, it's real at that moment, but that's not my permanent reality. So when I draw them and I share them with others, there's kind of like a feeling of release.
Mm.
So that was one thing that was important for me. And another thing was that I just feel like I was able to, I guess, introspect a little deeper. And that just was really, enlivening for me, that I can start to become more nuanced in the way I saw my emotions and a little bit more thoughtful in how I presented it. So I think in that way I kind of matured, because when something would happen or someone said something I didn't like, instead of just getting annoyed, I would ask myself, okay, what am I really feeling? Like, am I feeling insecure because how someone talked to me, and where is that coming from? Where is this feeling of being small coming from? So I was able to kind of unpeel, if that makes sense, take off some layers and go a little deeper.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it totally
yeah.
makes sense. It's you are creating for yourself a opportunity to learn more about what you're going through, what you're feeling.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really good way to put it. It was a really wonderful way to just learn about myself.
Yeah.
And to do that, being witnessed by so many other people was, I would think, scary, but actually turned into also an even more beautiful opportunity. It felt like I was on a journey with so many people. People would be texting me every day, like, hey, I can't wait for day 56, or hey,
Hmm.
what you wrote yesterday helped me so much through this.
That's
So
amazing.
it was really nice. Like, I really, genuinely appreciated all of it.
Because I can imagine going through an experience like that, even if it's, emotionally repairing and healing, and it's still raw, it's still probably challenging at times. So to get that
Mm.
validation on the other side has got to be a sort of, okay, I gotta keep doing this.
Yes, exactly. If I didn't have that kind of validation or support, or just people like seeing what I was doing in real time, I
Hmm.
wouldn't have kept going. There's like so many times I was like, there's no way I'm doing 100 of these. Like 55 is enough, 65 is enough. Like I was just so close to quitting. And just because I had that encouragement on the other side, I saw it to 100. And so I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah. Would when we talk about obscure emotions, what do you mean by that?
An obscure emotion is an emotion that we feel, and yet it's just so hard to identify. It's obscure, meaning it's hard to name. It's hard to exactly pinpoint what it is. And so when I say obscure emotion, it's this thing. We all know it, we all feel it, but how do we how do we even talk about it when we don't exactly know what it is? And
Mm-hmm.
so for me to draw something that's obscure was a unique challenge, but I think that's why it's so appealing, because it's like, wow, you know, to give a form to something that seems so formless is kind of exciting.
Yeah, and I think it's a great lesson for, I think, all of us who, all humans really that process emotions. We all do. It is sometimes, a lot of times, I should say, hard to determine why we're feeling a certain way and really how to define it and where it's coming from. And we always don't have the mediums to process them. Obviously, journaling is one, and that's been known to be helpful. But I think art is another way, and you've proven that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I was just opening up my notes from when I created this project, and can I read something? It's nice. It's kind of like the lesson that I learned.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
phrase it much nicer in this, but after 100 days, this is something I posted. I said, this project has been a lesson in acceptance, to accept, hold, and give space to all of my obscure emotions, to let go of fear of failure and imperfection, and to broadcast my private doubts publicly, to be utterly and courageously exposed, and above all else, to create something with heart. So, yeah, it's a lot about accepting. It's just, I'm feeling these things, let me accept it, not negate it. Just accept, give space for it, and to even broadcast whatever I feel publicly. And in that way, I'm very courageously exposing my heart. And there's something empowering about just being that vulnerable, to just be so honest, put it out there, and some kind of feeling of empowerment comes from that. So,
yeah, absolutely it does. And I think that's super well said. I want to sort of shift a little bit into, obviously I want to talk about Dear Rooksy as it is now, but I want to first talk a little bit about communal empathy or community oriented empathy. Let's start with just like how does Dear Rooksy, I mean, we're talking around it, but how does it specifically be sort of this communal empathy power in your life and the people that read it?
Right. For me, communal empathy, and this is just my own way of seeing it, is when someone can share their heart and there's like a group, a community of people that equally just understand, and they're just there to listen and give space. And I see that especially with Dear Rooksy, because even though the posts are anonymous, people share some very personal things, struggles, heartbreaks, disease, even joys also, and just things that happen in their life. And what always gets me is when I see the comments from people and just how people are saying, hey, we're with you, or, oh my God, I felt this too, or, thank you for your strength in sharing. For me, that's been just so incredibly beautiful. And that's something I also just take a lot of pride in, because it's not that I'm creating this thing or I'm holding space for someone. It's the pride I feel is that, wow, there's a community of good people coming together to support other people through their struggles and to help other people not feel so alone. So that's kind of what I believe communal empathy is, and that's something I feel very inspired by and want to cultivate more and more in my artwork.
Yeah, and Dear Rooksy is this thing where you have an exchange. It's a collaborative environment where people submit their vulnerable, open-hearted emotions to you, and then you illustrate them. So there's this exchange, this sort of human interaction that I think is an important part of it.
Right. And it's so interesting because it's on the internet, which the internet can feel so impersonal at times. But I feel like when we use it properly, it can be such an incredible channel for this real personal connection. So definitely it's a collaboration, and it's fascinating because it's with people who are anonymous. So once again, I don't know these people, but I feel so connected. Like when I get a Dear Rooksy letter, I think about it for a while before I can compose a drawing. And I actually have to take a moment and really empathize, like, okay, this person is talking about how they lost the love of their life a few years ago. What does that feel like? What does that look like? Um, yeah, so it's powerful. And I'm just opening up a Dear Rooksy someone had sent some time ago, and I'm looking at the comments. And so this is an example of someone who will say, um, dear person who wrote this, thank you for your strength. I'm here with you. Or someone here shared their own story. Let's see, it says, you are not alone. More people than you can ever imagine are going through something similar. I would truly encourage you to look for a support group outside your normal circle of friends, sending you love and strength. So for me, that's beautiful. These people who don't know each other are still feeling so connected. And there's such a human connection, respecting each other as just humans and family.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's such a power of like equity. Maybe that's not right. Just equality, really, was what I'm getting at. It's grinding us down to our sort of simple component parts, and it's a reminder that we're all just humans, and we are very alike in many ways. And to have things like Dear Rooksy and just other collaborative environments like that are great reminders of that, and in that, it's very humbling,
Right.
We like, for You, Me, Empathy, we have, a little Facebook group that is small at this point, but I'd imagine it'll continue growing over time. But just, I wanted to create a space to be a companion to this podcast where people can just talk about their struggles or their sort of joys through the week or what have you. And the responses, like you're describing on your Dear Rooksy posts, the responses to people have been just so warm and supportive, and just that sort of ongoing, like, hey buddy, you're not alone, is such a powerful thing.
Right. That's so nice. And that's so nice you're doing that also because, creating community like that is such a need. I feel like we can't get through what we do in our life, if we don't have that kind of support and encouragement from others.
Yeah, I know. We need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, some more than others.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
For sure.
So what are, I want to get into, so where are you at with Dear Rooksy today? You're obviously still taking obscure emotions sent in, but like what are you sort of hoping to get out of it? And do you have aspirations to, it becoming a, much bigger thing than it is? Like, what are your hopes?
Yeah, I definitely have aspirations for it being bigger, especially when I put the website together. That was my first step into really making it more public. Until then, it was just something that existed on my Instagram. But once I gave it an identity and a logo and really a home on the internet, I'm just really hoping that it could be, just picked up by magazines or newspapers or different things like that, kind of like an advice column. I'm not sure anymore if it would go in that direction, but that was the closest thing I could think of, like an illustrated advice column where people, they send in how they feel, and instead of getting like an advice written to them, it would just be an image, and that image, in my hope, would be some way of giving them validation, healing them, and the truth is I don't have any advice to give, but I can just have like a open heart, to hear what they're going through. And then I can somehow use my skills as an illustrator to mirror how they feel. So if that could be picked up by either online magazines or journals and things like that, that would be beautiful. Yeah, so that, and I have thought also the idea of publishing, self-publishing a book or
Hmm.
seeing how that would happen. My series of 100 Obscure Emotions, last year I actually published that. I self-published it into a book. So I have those books
Oh,
available that
nice.
I sell on my website. Yeah, and I give them to people, I sell them. Yeah, and I've done since last August, I've done 2 art shows, which have been really exciting, and I hope I can do more. In August, I did a show about my 100-day project, and in December, I got invited to be a part of another show in Brooklyn, and I was just showcasing my Dear Rooksy project for the first time, and that was really encouraging, and it was very cool to see it in a gallery space. This project that kind of only existed on the web. And it was awesome. It was great to see people's reactions. People who went through that. It was like a 2-night pop-up art gallery amongst maybe like 8, 9 other artists.
Wow.
And yeah, it was great. The theme was actually heartbreak. It was interesting. So all the artists were kind of drawing from their own experience of relationship, and I used the opportunity to introduce Dear Rooksy as basically I'm showcasing the stories of so many people going through heartbreak, except I'm just the illustrator behind
Mm.
it, and it's really their stories. And once again, it was beautiful to see people coming into that gallery space and like taking their time to really read each one, and some people were kind of getting choked up and so emotional over these stories. And yeah, so just for me, whether it's art galleries or journals and magazines, I'm just really really excited about finding a way to put these stories out there,
Yeah.
and to put Dear Rooksy out there. So it really does become more of a community, because for me, in the end of the day, even if it doesn't get into any of these forums and it just still, exists in my little website, in a way that's fine, as long as there's still people out there who are creating that communal empathy, where really anything can be shared. There's no judgment, and there's just the sense of, hey, I'm listening to you. Like, you have a story to share, like, tell the world, and there's going to be someone who's going to listen and appreciate. And I think that's really beautiful, because especially in the Dear Rooksy, this whole project that I started, for me, what touches me the most is just like how absolutely honest and vulnerable these stories are. Because once again, when people can take off their mask and feel that they're in a safe space, they just really share from the heart. And anything that's super honest is super attractive, and people can feel that. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
so that's my answer.
No, that's great. And what I'm sort of drawing to is the idea that we as humans can sort of reach out to you
Hmm.
or to anyone and express an emotion
Hmm.
with the hope of just having that emotion out there. Like,
Mm.
they're not necessarily, it's not necessarily a mission to find a solution. It's just, there's just simple power in
Yeah.
just
Hmm.
sharing and knowing that it's out there and finding a little bit of respite, a little bit of hope in that, as opposed to, oh, I got to like solve this thing or
Right.
whatever.
That's so beautifully said. I really appreciate that point, that it's not about solving or fixing. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. It's really just about sharing that raw feeling and having someone else hold space for that.
Yeah, and I think that's such a important lesson for all of us, um, and for you listeners, is that just sharing a little bit can be enough to get you through what you're experiencing, and having that validation on the other end with someone, Dear Rooksy illustrating it, or just a friend saying, I hear you, or whatever. Like,
Hmm.
sometimes it's just those little efforts then that can make a huge difference.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Especially when it comes to just healing. There's so many different ways of healing, whether it's, journaling, or we kind of spoke about it before, talking to friends. But yeah, just to know that there's a forum where you can just share so openly
Hmm.
is something that is great, and I hope I can provide that forum for as long as I can.
Hmm. So in your mind, what are some other ways that we can, as humans, just be more communally focused in our empathy?
Hmm. Right. Wow, that's a great question. Be more communally focused. Hmm. Can you elaborate a little bit more
Sure.
on what you
Actually,
mean by that?
I'll help you by
Sure.
listing a couple that I think are sort of good ways. Is
Yes, please.
one is my wife is a community college English teacher,
Hmm.
and I think a way to be more communally focused in our empathy is to be a teacher, honestly, and
Hmm.
be sort of engaged and thoughtful in how you interact and you know be a teacher. So
Right.
my wife likes the community college English, or community college rather, level of education because it is um, an environment that has a lot of people from various backgrounds and various socioeconomic classes. And so there's a lot more just different cultures and differences and race and religion and all these things. And so it's a great sort of, just as a teacher and then just as a student, a great way to learn. I think I guess so. There's two things there. There's one, be a teacher and be engaged and sort of be connected to your students and wanting them to succeed. And then the other is surround yourself with people who are different than you.
Hmm.
Learning from them, understanding them, all that. I think those are two good ways to sort of focus on a empathy that's more community based.
Right. I love those examples, definitely. Especially being around people who are different than us
Hmm.
is such a great example because so often, especially if we're not alert, we'll just be around, people who are very similar to us, and that's totally fine. But I think we get a little stretched, when we're with people who are a little different, maybe people have different like backgrounds or faiths or political beliefs, and it just helps us empathize with other people on a human level, and we can be around those different people, and seek the essence. Like, oh, in the end of the day, we're all humans. We're all connected. Why do we get hung up on these differences? So whether that's in a school setting or a church setting or what other way, I think when we're in community, it's beautiful because we kind of are forced to go past these differences, so-called differences,
Hmm.
and see what's in common and love people despite all of that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And
yeah.
I think in that, just sort of just work harder on being more inclusive of different viewpoints, ideas, realities, because
Hmm.
in doing so, one, it just takes us out of our comfort zones. And I think
Yeah.
in our comfort zones, we can get complacent as
Hmm.
thinkers, as emotional processors, as all of the above, we get complacent.
Hmm. It's very well put. Definitely complacent when we're just in that little bubble, our comfort bubble, which I feel so often.
Yeah.
Yeah, that when we stretch ourselves a little bit, even, and then going back to my own experience where I just a little stretched in order to post something online, that was a little out of my comfort zone. But
Hmm.
from that, I felt like a lot came.
Yeah, absolutely. A beautiful project came that's
Yeah.
touching, many lives.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I think communal empathy starts with ourselves, maybe taking that step out of our own bubble into maybe other people's lives and taking steps out into a wider community of diverse thinkers and people, and just noticing like how beautiful the world is with different people. So often we feel like everyone should be the same thinkers as we are, or from the same backgrounds, or so on and so forth. But I think when we can really appreciate how these differences they expand our own consciousness, they expand, our own way of seeing the world, then we value it. And then we want to be around these people and understand them, understand their way of seeing the world. It's a really beautiful thing. And I can say for myself, so much growth has come from that, has come from traveling, has come from connecting with new people, I thank New York so often for all of the interesting characters I see, because
Yeah.
it's just constantly, like expanding the way I see the world. My paradigms are always being challenged and shifted. I see someone from a really tough background, maybe just on the subway, or homeless people, or someone, just all kinds of people. You have to empathize because it's kind of just staring you in the face, such different kinds of people.
Right. Yeah. No,
So,
New
yeah.
York is a good city for that, for sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
can't run away from it. It's like
No.
reality is just really in your face.
Yeah. With all the smells included.
Exactly. Exactly.
A couple more ways that I was thinking that, we can be sort of more focused on empathy in terms of the people in our lives or that we just interact with is calling or sending texts or letters to friends, I think is a good way to do it.
Yeah.
I always send, like every guest I have on this show, I like to send a little letter to after the fact. And it's just a way to, show people that I appreciate them and that, so like adopting more of that, like send a text to
Yeah.
to a friend you haven't heard in a while. Just say, hey, buddy,
Yeah.
I've been thinking about you. You're in my heart. Like those little efforts can make a huge difference.
Right. Yeah, you're so right about that. And it's something I've been thinking about also, personalism, how to be more personal in our relationships and not just let them become very manufactured or routine, which is very often, very easy to do. But like you're saying, sending a letter, or I think a few weeks ago or a month, someone sent me a handwritten letter or like a postcard type thing. And it was amazing. I was like, wow, someone cared enough to take the time to do this. Really touched my heart and just reminded me just when we're a little bit more personal in our interactions, like it's really beautiful.
Yeah. And I think another one, and I think I am going to try to do this, but it's hard sometimes, is talk more openly to like just neighbors and ask how they're doing.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Because
a really
it's so
good one.
easy to, I remember living in New York City or just really any city and just like putting your head down, putting your headphones on and not sort of looking into people's eyes. And
oh God, I'm so guilty of that.
well, we all are. We all are.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Mhm.
But, I think a good maybe perspective to have sometimes is we never know what journeys people are taking, and they could be having a rough time, and maybe your, quick engagement with them, asking them how they're doing, locking eyes with them, whatever it may be, like that could be a huge difference to them.
Yeah, that's such a good idea. Something I just got an idea or a memory. My mom is like incredible at this. She's such a personal, warm-hearted person. And when I grew up, she would carry little like cookies or sweets with her. And when she met people or like just people would come, mailmen or whoever she would interact with, she'd like to give them a little gift. Here's a little like treat or a sweet I made or a little cookie. And it was just the sweetest thing. You can just tell this person's heart would just open when they receive this. It's like, wow, this person is thinking about me and giving such a warm gesture of love.
That's so lovely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really nice. I just remember that and I was like, wow, I need to learn from that.
Yeah.
It's such a nice thing, an exchange and receiving of love. And I feel like it can even be with strangers in a way, because when you just appreciate a human for who they are, sometimes it's nice to, whether it's words of appreciation or a little like gift or a candy or anything, it's really nice to have that exchange, giving and receiving love.
Yeah.
And it can go so far, really.
It can. It really can. I think it can ultimately have a great ripple effect on people and communities. And it doesn't have to start, big. Like, look at your example in Dear Rooksy. You started this thing on a personal level to sort of process some things that you were going through, and you decided to open up your heart and put it online, and now like you're growing this community, which, so it starts small.
Yeah.
And so
Definitely.
I'm really just speaking to the listener at this point, is like little things you can do here and there can ultimately create a great ripple effect in the people in your life.
Yeah, definitely. And one more example that's coming to mind, also for the listener, as an example to practice this communal empathy, is to just share your heart on an open forum.
Mm,
Social media is great for that. Just say, write, or share something that's very personal for you. And chances are, if it's very honest and just sincere and kind, you'll get something back. You'll get some interaction, and you'll create a dialogue that's really meaningful. And that's because people, when someone takes that first vulnerable step to take off their mask and share their heart in an open way, people feel that, like, that makes a difference, and people appreciate that kind of authenticity. So even if we're going through something or had a rough week, we can take the chance and post that to our friends or somewhere, and just see what kind of dialogue emerges from there.
totally. Yeah, that's a great one. One more that I think is sort of integral in all of this is understanding, like having an understanding that things aren't cut and dry and so black and white. And so this
Yes.
thing or that thing, I think we as humans want to sometimes process the world through that lens or look through the world through that lens because it's a little less overwhelming. But if we can shed a little bit of that sort of structure and remind ourselves that, hey, things aren't so cut and dry, then
Yeah,
we're more open to these ideas.
definitely. That's such a good point because, I mean, how many shades of gray are there between something?
Oh
And
yeah.
I feel like that's why stories are powerful, because stories are all about the gray. It's
Mm-hmm.
never just one thing or the other. So when we hear a story, we can never really make a judgment about people. We just start to see, like, oh, this is complex. Oh, right, life is complex. And you
Right.
just start appreciating the complexities between these white and black shades. And I think that's nice. I think when we can appreciate humans and people and all their complexities, we really can't judge them. Like, when you really hear someone's story, you can't really judge them because you just start to see them and all their complexity and everything that's going on, and that's it. You
Yeah.
just gotta see it. You can't really make a judgment or fix anything. You just have to, yeah, understand that.
Yeah, you see yourself in them.
Yeah.
You recognize that they're fallible human beings like
Hmm.
yourself,
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, something about talking about our flaws, it's powerful because we're all flawed. And when we just accept and understand that, then it's helpful. It's easy to forgive ourselves, easier to forgive other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think like as, someone who suffers, I don't know if I want to use this word suffer, someone who has depression,
Hmm.
who has
Hmm.
experience with anxiety, I can get so insular in those experiences, and I think we all can relate to that where we are experiencing a thing and we somehow convince ourselves that we're the only ones experiencing it and we're all alone
Yeah.
or
Hmm.
we're alone on an island, processing
Yeah.
these emotions, but
Oh,
take a
yeah.
step back, try to. It's hard sometimes, I understand, but try to take a step back and say, "Hey, I'm not alone."
Hmm.
And there's probably a lot of people that can hear my story and relate to it and reach out to me, and
Mm.
remind me of that.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the most powerful things we can do is gain a little bit of that perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what is if you had your sort of dream wish sort of scenario with Dear Rooksy, like what would that look like? Like you mentioned like magazines, you mentioned sort of like an advice column situation. Like
Mm.
if that's the case, then what magazine or like what does that look like?
Yeah. Oh, this is fun. I mean, I've always dreamed about being picked up by the New Yorker,
Oh, sure.
and just having a column on there, having my illustrations on there. I've, especially with my 100 Obscure Emotions and that book I self-published, I've also really wanted that to be picked up by a bigger publisher. And really, every time I go into Urban Outfitters or one of those cool stores, I walk, to their book gifts section, and I really just kind of picture my book there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially these kind of cool gift stores and things like that. I see all kinds of great books, and I'm just really really hopeful that one day I'll have my book there. And I think just the whole topic of emotions is so universal, and people want it, and it's helpful, and it's attractive. And so I would love to see my books out there in the mainstream, and not even so much for myself. I mean, of course, that would be awesome and exciting, but there's something about the whole mission of Obscure Emotions and Dear Rooksy that I feel really deeply passionate about, and that's so satisfying when I'm working on it, that I want to see it grow for that reason. Like, I want to see it in the New Yorker, and I want to see like this huge, blog on the web kind of blowing up with all kinds of entries from people all over the world, and more art shows. That was awesome for me to be part of one, but I would love to be in larger art galleries and just have a lot of exposure, and really, more than anything, just create more and more of this dialogue of accepting our own emotions and accepting other people's emotions.
Yes.
So for me, that would all be a dream, but especially to get published. That's been on my bucket list for a long time, to find a proper agent and publisher and kind of get that in bookstores all over.
Have you heard of the illustrator Grant Snyder of Incidental Comics?
Yes, but he is my hero. Absolutely.
He did the logo for this podcast.
Yeah, that's how I found out about the podcast. I saw him on Instagram. I was like, oh, this is very cool.
Yeah. So I've known him for a few years now because he also did the logo for a previous podcast of mine, Joy Sandwich. And he's just a great guy. And he's now has little illustrations in the New Yorker.
I know. I've never met him. If you know him, please tell him I say hi, but I really look up to him. Everything that he's doing, I'm just like, okay, thank you for doing this, because now I have a role model to kind of follow in their footsteps. But his work is incredible. It's just beautiful, his illustrations and his words and everything.
Yeah, agreed. I only bring him up just because, he started small, and now he has little illustrations from time to time in the New Yorker, which is awesome. Yeah,
that is awesome.
So,
yeah, thanks for bringing him up.
Yeah.
It's helpful. It's helpful. It brings hope for sure.
Yeah. So I guess that's where I want to start wrapping it up. Is there maybe anything else you wanted to comment on, sort of communal empathy or Dear Rooksy, or did we miss anything?
No, we kind of covered a good base. Let's see. No, that's about it.
All right. Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
That's great. No, it was great. Well, we always wrap up the show talking about an empathy hero in our lives. So someone we know personally, or even like someone in a book, or, someone that's not real, or someone who's dead, anyone that has touched our lives that is doing great work in terms of embracing empathy. Do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
Maybe you can start. I might need to think about that.
Yeah, no worries. My empathy hero, it's actually two people this week, is my wife, Jessica's parents, Rich and Cynthia. They are, I've been married to my wife for almost 8 years. We've been together for like 10 years or so. And from the get-go, they were two individuals who sort of embraced me with open hearts and just like the most kindest, sort of compassionate hearts, I guess, to repeat myself. They just have this way of always there and sort of expressive in their care toward me. And even when I'm like having a hard time and I'm closed off emotionally, and I'm like closed off to that care and that love, like they're still always so attentive and just caring. And even if I don't, sometimes I struggle with sort of that level of love because I didn't necessarily have it growing up or feel it. Sometimes I'm uncomfortable with it, but when I am able to open up, it's always they're just always there and so attentive in their care. And it's just It's just a beautiful thing. So, Jessica's parents, you're my empathy heroes this week.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
Well, parents are the best. Really,
They
I was
can
thinking when
be.
you're
Yeah.
definitely, I was thinking empathy hero. Well, when you were saying that, my mother came up for me for sure.
Yeah.
Being someone who, I guess the first word I can think of is like unconditional. It's like, wow, where does that love come from?
Mm-hmm.
Very similar to what you said. Just whatever I do and whatever happens, it's just like constant support, always there. Just want to hear your voice type person. So appreciate her. And someone else came in my mind, which is this is a very quirky example, but kind of interesting. I live here on First Avenue in New York, and we have this guy who kind of is always outside, and he has a little table and he sells belts. And his name is James. And he is, when you talk about personal, he is personal, especially compared to New Yorkers who we just kind of have our heads down, no eye contact and walk. He's always there, always smiles, a big, hi, Rukmini, good morning, remembers my name, wants to hear about how my week was.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always, I just want to do a shout out to James, the belt guy on First Street, First Avenue, who's kind of just, what a great example of just communal empathy, someone who's there and just interacting with the community, wants to know how people are doing, remembers the names of shop owners and things like that. But yeah, he came in my mind because it's
Awesome.
nice, that someone in the community, that I see on a daily basis is so personal and I can learn so much from him.
Yeah. Good job, James.
Yeah, James is the man for sure.
I love that. Well, Rukmini, remind or just tell the listeners where they can connect with you online and where they can submit their obscure emotions.
Yeah, definitely. I would be so, so honored to have them connect with me and submit their own emotions. And they could go to dearruksi.com. That's Dear Ruksi, RUKSI.com. And you could, submit your emotions anonymously or not, or also check out all the other drawings I've done. I've done about over 70 Dear Ruksi illustrations now. So they're all kind of organized there. And please follow me on Instagram. I would so love to connect with anyone there. You can go to @Rockin, ROCKIN, and then Ruksi, RUKSI. And I'm always posting drawings. I try to draw something at least a couple times or 3 times a week. And yeah, let's continue the conversation, keep the dialogues going. This is what I really love doing in my life. So please connect.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on You Me Empathy, Rukmini.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nad, for this conversation. This was just really beautiful.
Oh, of course.
Really, really appreciate what you're doing and just the whole conversation of empathy and connecting with others. And it's all so important. And so I feel honored to be a part of your show and your project.
Well, I'm honored to have you. And for you listeners, I will say, as I always do, I'm here, you're here, we're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring pale blue dot. We have each other. It's You, Me, Empathy.